Hello, I'm Piers from SSW, and I'm here with Matthew Renze, who is going to talk to us about AI and why developers should care about it. So I guess the first question, Matthew, is why should developers care about it?
Well, I think the simple answer is because the time is right. We have a series of tools now that provide a lot of functionality that we can add to our software products and services with relatively easy or low barriers to entry. Things that any software developer can do now. For example, we can do things like sentiment analysis, face recognition, object detection, image classification, sound detection, any of these things that previously would have required a PhD in data science or AI and a team of data scientists to pull off. We can now do with simple REST API calls because some of the companies like Microsoft, Google, and Amazon have pre-packaged or pre-trained these models and they've made them available through the cloud. So rather than having to build these models on our own, which took a lot of time and effort, we can now just use their models, do a little bit of transfer learning if necessary, and then make an API call sending an image to that service, and it's going to give us the answer back. It's a very different world than it was just a couple of years ago in terms of what we can do with artificial intelligence and who now has access to that, essentially the democratization of AI.
Right, so we built a little chatbot at SSW. It's called SophieBot, and that kind of works with Lewis and Azure Bot Framework, and it's kind of like, it figures out your question and then it returns like profile cards of people and things like that. So is that the kind of thing that you would think developers should be looking at you doing with AI?
Yes, that's actually one of the great ways for a company to get into AI because they get relatively quick returns on their investment. Chatbots are a super simple way to start working with natural language processing in a way that's providing direct value or real value to your customers, especially if you can handle, say, 80% of the tech support questions with your chatbot, and then you still have human beings handle the remaining 20% that are edge cases that the chatbot can't handle. But what that's also doing is giving you a massive database of interactions with your customers to help you better understand your customers, the questions that they're asking, so that you can train more advanced models in the future that will be able to handle this without the kind of if-then kind of logic that current chatbots have built into them in terms of answering questions, which leads to things like GPT-3, where we have these very complex deep learning, that's an attention-based transformer that are essentially having conversations with people and doing what we call few-shot learning, where essentially you can give it a prompt of some kind and then it can essentially just generate text to answer that prompt in very complex ways that a simple chatbot typically wouldn't be able to do.
Right, so if you have that kind of system in place, does that mean that I wouldn't be able to tell that's a chatbot even if I was talking to it?
Yeah, in many ways, it's getting difficult for human beings to determine whether they're talking to another human being or an AI of some kind. And once again, you can, if you know what questions to ask, it's really easy to determine whether they're conscious or not. Like we discussed the Lambda 2 Google thing that's happening right now, where there was a senior engineer who thought that the chatbot was sentient. And apparently the chatbot has a lawyer now too to try proving that it's sentient. But that's just a statistical sequence predictor. It's essentially using words as tokens and vectors to predict what is the most likely text to come next. And that is very different from something like general artificial intelligence, where a machine would actually be conscious or sentient or something like that. It's an interesting trick because it's using human language, which we think only humans can do. And so we're more likely to ascribe sentience to something using language than to like a synthetic image of a person that's being generated. We wouldn't think that just because we can synthesize what a person looks like, that is a real person behind that image. But we have a tendency to do that with text, though.
That's amazing. And when you start to get lawyers involved and things like that, it's really getting hard to figure out where the line is drawn, isn't it?
Yeah, and I think it's going to get progressively more difficult for humans to determine whether something is actually intelligent or sentient or conscious or not as we get further down the road. But most of that, I think, is still a good 10 years away. I hate making predictions about that stuff because you're never right. But I think based on everything I currently know about where we're at with modern artificial intelligence, it's at minimum 5 years off and probably more likely 10 to 20 years down the road before we'll have general artificial intelligence sufficient to solve tasks that the average human being can solve. Right now, we're very much in the zone of what we call artificial narrow intelligence, where we train a model to solve a very specific problem, and then that's all it can do. Like if you train an agent to play tic-tac-toe, it can't just go and play chess, and it can't just vacuum your floor. But at some point in time, we'll have agents where they're multimodal models and they're general intelligence, where you can actually have them learn new tasks because of all their previous knowledge. But like I said, that's a ways down the road.
Right. So what are some of the main business cases you think where developers should be saying, I should be using AI here? What's the top three?
I would say chatbots are a great entry for most people. In addition, there's very simple things you can do with like image detection or image analysis. So detecting a face in an image, detecting objects in their locations. Like if you have to build an app that just detects your logo, company's logo in an image. Like these are really easy things that you can do right now with AI. So I would say text analysis, image analysis, and then coming very soon, I think we'll see more video analysis coming into play where, like a company's got a bunch of videos and they need to archive them. You could essentially run them through a video analysis service that will extract all of the text, all of the people in the videos, what's being discussed, and where the transitions, from one topic to the next topic are happening. So you can rapidly, find what you need from your archive of videos.
Right, and then you've got things like image analysis, like you just mentioned. That's kind of got lots of privacy implications and that sort of thing. So what are kind of the impacts of that on our world?
Well, interestingly, the impact that I just felt at this conference was that Microsoft made a change because of privacy concerns to the demo that I was demonstrating. But luckily, I knew about it a few days beforehand, so it didn't impact my demo directly. But yeah, we definitely need to start considering how these tools are going to be used, both productively and for potentially nefarious reasons, and what exposure to privacy that's going to create. So for example, one of the main concerns right now with facial recognition is that the face recognition algorithms have been trained mostly, predominantly on people with light skin color. And so the models are better at predicting people with light skin color, who they are, than it is making the same predictions about people with darker skin tones, because the data sets have largely been biased just in terms of the population demographics of the places where these models were trained. So like that something like that could, recognizing that a class of people could be misclassified or mispredicted, that's potentially problematic in a bunch of different ways. But as well, we've also have privacy concerns in terms of, like how is this information being used? Is it being used against me or to advertise products to me that I wouldn't otherwise buy? Or in the case of like casinos, are they making predictions about me that essentially are taking away my own autonomy? Because they're able to predict what I'm going to do better than I'm able to do it. So for example, they know when you've reached essentially like exhaustion while playing at a slot machine. So they know when exactly to send out somebody with your favorite drink or your favorite snack in order to keep you gambling longer than you would have because you had hit that exhaustion limit.
Right, that's absolutely fascinating.
To me. Yeah.
That's really fascinating. Thanks for that short walkthrough of why developers should care about AI, Matthew, and hope to speak to you in the next one. And this is Piers from SSW signing off.